All right, so today we're going to dive into Cartrade Tech.
Okay.
You know them probably from Carwile and Cartrade.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting right now is they just picked up OLX India.
Okay.
That's the classifieds and the auto transactions part of the business.
Huge deal.
So we've got a bunch of stuff here.
Okay.
We've got some of their quarterly earnings calls from 2023 and 2024.
Hmm.
We've also got their annual report for the last financial year,
Got it.
their AGM notice, and an overview document.
Lots to dig into.
Yeah, so the goal is really to understand, like, where are they right now? How are they doing?
Yeah.
What are their growth plans?
Right.
What's their financial health like? And then really, how is that OLX acquisition, like, shaking things up?
That's the big question, right? I mean, that's a major development in the Indian automotive digital space.
Yeah.
And I think these sources give us a really good picture.
Okay.
It's not just a company we're looking at,
Right.
It's like a whole potential consolidation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big.
Yeah.
So even, like, glancing across these materials, a couple things really jump out.
Okay.
They're saying 70 million unique monthly customers
Wow.
across their platforms.
That's massive.
Which is huge. And the thing that's crazy is 90% of that is organic.
Oh, wow.
So they're not even having to pay
Yeah.
to get those people to their site.
That's remarkable.
And then their auction business, which is Shrine Automall, they did 1.2 million vehicle transactions
Okay.
just last year alone.
Wow.
And then they're not just online.
Right.
They've got over 250 locations for Carwall, Upsure Signature stores, and now all the OLX India stores.
So a significant physical presence as well.
Yeah, and then I think like the strategic fit
Yeah.
that they see, OLX being really strong in smaller towns, and then the cars that are under 8 lakhs,
Okay.
and then Carwall's really strong in those top 25 cities, and for cars that are above 8 lakhs.
Right.
So it seems like they really have a vision for how these two can work together.
I mean, that 90% organic traffic figure is just remarkable.
It's crazy.
It really suggests a very strong brand presence.
Yeah.
Efficient customer acquisition. And that's a huge advantage, right? Because you think about competitors who are spending a lot of money on marketing, paid advertising to get people to their sites.
They're just showing up.
Yeah, they're just showing up.
People are searching for them.
It indicates a deep connection with the user base, I think. And then, that synergy you talked about between OLX and Carwall.
Yeah.
I mean, leveraging those distinct market strengths.
Right.
That points towards a very well thought out integration strategy.
Yeah.
And then when you add on top of that, this physical network expansion.
Yeah.
It shows they're really ambitious about catering to a wide range of customer preferences.
So let's get into their financials.
Okay.
Because these numbers are interesting.
Let's see it.
So in their Q1 2025 earnings call, which was July of 2024, they said that operating revenue was up 64%.
Oh, wow.
Overall revenue was up 46%.
Okay.
And profit after tax jumped 69%.
Okay. So when you see those kind of gains, what's your initial reaction?
I mean, those are some serious growth figures.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you see revenue going up and profit going up at the same time makes you think it's not just like they're expanding,
right?
But they're actually getting more efficient.
Yeah, it suggests operational efficiency is improving as well. So
Right.
It makes you wonder what's driving that performance, beyond just the OLX acquisition.
Right.
Are we seeing organic growth in their existing platforms as well?
It seems like it.
Yeah.
So their annual report for FY24, which ended in March 2024, also shows a really good picture.
Yeah.
34.70% increase in consolidated net revenue from operations. 31.88% growth in adjusted EBITDA.
Healthy growth.
And they're maintaining that 30% adjusted EBITDA margin.
Okay, so how significant is that consistency? You're seeing profitability alongside growth.
Yeah.
How do you interpret that?
I think maintaining a 30% adjusted EBITDA margin while also growing that much is a really good sign.
Yeah.
It means they're not just like,
sacrificing
profit to grow.
Exactly.
Which a lot of companies do.
Yeah, that's often a concern during these rapid expansion phases.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, is this margin consistent across their different business segments?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So then it gets even more detailed.
Oh, yeah.
So their standalone results in that first quarter of FY25, they said it was their highest revenue ever.
Wow.
And then they also said that their EBITDA surged 98% for that quarter.
Wow.
And 100% for the 9 months leading up to it.
That's incredible.
And then their EBITDA margin jumped to 28% from 18%.
So a big jump.
Year on year.
Mm-hmm.
And they went from a loss to a 46 crore profit.
Okay, so what does that kind of turnaround tell us about the core health of Cartrade Tech before they even brought OLX in fully?
I think it's a really positive sign that even before OLX was completely integrated, their existing platforms were already doing really well.
Yeah.
And that could be for a few reasons.
Yeah, like what?
Maybe user engagement is going up. Maybe their monetization strategies are getting better. Or maybe the market's just, really favorable for them right now.
Could be a combination of factors.
Yeah, but it shows that they had a strong foundation even before OLX came into the picture.
Absolutely.
So then we also have their standalone results for the full year ending March 31st, 2024. And that shows a 19.15% increase in revenue from operations and then 8.90% rise in adjusted EBITDA.
So consistent growth.
Yeah, so it seems like financially they're moving in the right direction.
It does, yeah, that consistent growth across both the quarterly and annual figures.
Yeah.
It really reinforces that this is a company with strong momentum.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, that the EBITDA growth for the full year is a bit more modest than that quarterly surge we saw.
Right.
So maybe there were some headwinds earlier in the year.
Right.
Or maybe they made some investments that are now starting to pay off.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got to factor in OLX.
Right.
Because they bought them in August of 23.
Yeah.
So from August 12th to March 31st.
Okay.
OLX added over 109 crore.
Wow.
In income from operations. And a net profit of over 27 crore.
To the consolidated financials.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we interpret that initial impact?
I mean, that's a pretty big contribution.
Yeah, in a short amount of time.
Yeah, in just a few months.
Yeah, it shows the immediate scale and the profitability that OLX brings to the table.
A big deal.
It is, but, it's still early days, right?
Right.
This is just the initial phase.
Yeah.
The real test is going to be how effectively can they integrate OLX.
Right.
And leverage those synergies to really drive value over the long term.
And it seems like that's their goal, right? Like they said they want to be India's largest automotive platform.
Yeah.
So they're taking their existing strengths, combining that with OLX's reach, which is massive.
Massive.
6.8 crore average monthly unique visitors.
Yeah.
3.2 crore annual listings.
What's the significance of that scale?
Well, I think if they can achieve that kind of scale, it's a huge network effect, right?
Yeah.
So the more buyers and sellers you have on the platform, the more valuable it becomes to both sides.
Yeah.
And then that attracts even more users.
Right. So it kind of feeds itself.
Yeah. So it's like a snowball effect.
Exactly.
But then, of course, managing all those users is going to be a challenge.
Right.
Right? Like the platform has to be stable. Customer support has to be good.
You got to keep people engaged. That's a lot of people to keep happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've already started talking about the synergies they expect.
Okay.
So they see tech synergies, right?
Yeah.
Like optimizing the platform.
Yeah.
They see cost savings from,
combining things.
Combining tech locations. And then I think a big one is for dealers.
Okay.
They'll be able to bid on vehicles from both OLX and Shram Automall.
So kind of one big pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They said late 2024, the tech integration should take like 4 to 6 months.
So what are the potential hurdles to realizing those synergies?
Well, I think the benefits are pretty clear.
Yeah.
But actually doing it is going to be hard.
Yeah.
I mean, integrating different tech platforms, especially when you have different architecture and data models.
Yeah.
That takes time and it takes resources.
It's a big undertaking.
Yeah. And then combining physical locations.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to do that carefully.
Right. You don't want to disrupt operations.
Yeah. Or lose good people. And then the dealer bidding thing.
Yeah.
It sounds great, but,
sure.
You got to make sure it's fair.
Right. It's got to be seamless.
Yeah. Both sets of dealers have to be on board.
Yeah. They got to feel good about it.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Got to be a win-win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're pretty clear about how they see themselves in the market.
Okay.
So, like we said, OLX is strong in those smaller towns for cars under 8 lakhs.
Yeah.
Which they think fits perfectly with Carwow,
right?
Which is strong in the big cities for cars over 8 lakhs.
Yeah.
And they even said that dealers and consumers use those platforms for different reasons.
So how important is that?
Yeah.
Like that distinct positioning?
Yeah, how crucial is that to their strategy?
Yeah.
I think it's smart.
Okay.
Because they're catering to different parts of the market.
Yeah.
With platforms that are already established.
Right.
So they're not competing against themselves.
Yeah, they're not cannibalizing their own business. They're maximizing their reach.
Yeah. And I think understanding how people use each platform is really important.
Yeah, why do they go there?
Yeah.
What are they looking for?
Yeah, because then you can tailor your services and how you make money.
Absolutely. You can give them what they want.
To each specific group.
Yeah.
So they're also really focused on expanding their physical retail network.
Okay.
With those OLX India stores and the CarWow and Signature stores.
Yeah, you mentioned they want to have over 250 locations.
Yeah.
So in this digital world, why are they still so focused on physical retail?
It's interesting, right?
It is.
But I think even though online platforms are growing, having a physical presence is still a big advantage.
In what way?
Especially for used cars.
Okay.
I mean, people are hesitant sometimes to spend that much money.
Yeah.
Entirely online.
It's a big purchase.
Yeah, so if you have a store, it builds trust. It gives people like a tangible experience.
Right. They can see it. They can touch it.
Yeah, and then you can also use those stores for other things like inspecting vehicles, financing, after-sales support.
So it becomes more than just buying a car.
Yeah, it's like a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
So they're recognizing that people want both.
Yeah.
They want the convenience of online, but they also want that reassurance of the physical presence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's also this shift we're seeing in how they're talking about their remarketing business.
Okay.
So they're moving more towards retail and away from relying on repossessed vehicles.
Okay.
Which makes sense because, supply of those vehicles has been down.
Right, because fewer people are defaulting on loans.
Yeah, NPAs are lower.
Yeah.
Which they're saying is good for the economy.
Yeah, that's a positive sign overall.
Yeah, but it does mean fewer cars for them.
Right. So what does that shift tell us?
Well, I think it shows that they're adaptable.
Okay.
They're responding to the market.
Yeah.
So instead of relying on repossessed vehicles, they're focusing more on like direct purchases, trade-ins, things like that.
So they're taking more control.
Yeah, they have more control over the quality and how many cars they have.
Okay.
And they can build better relationships with customers that way.
Yeah, so it's more sustainable in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to touch on that organic traffic again.
Right.
It's crazy that 90% of their 70 million monthly users.
It's a lot of people.
Are coming without them paying for marketing.
It's a huge asset. It keeps their costs down.
Right.
It shows that people are actively searching for them. They're not just clicking on ads.
Yeah, it's brand loyalty.
Yeah, it creates a virtuous cycle, right?
Yeah.
Their platforms become the go-to place for buying and selling used cars.
Yeah, and then that just makes them even stronger.
Exactly, and less reliant on paid advertising.
Yeah, which can be really unpredictable. So they seem pretty optimistic about the future.
Okay.
Both for the automotive side of OLX and the non-automotive side. Okay. But they're focusing on automotive first.
Right.
And then they say in like 6 to 12 months, they'll really start pushing the non-automotive stuff.
So why the phased approach?
Well, I think it makes sense to focus on the core business first.
Okay.
Which is automotive.
Yeah.
Make sure that integration goes smoothly.
Right.
Get some wins under their belt.
Yeah.
And then once they've got that solid, they can move on to other stuff.
It's like building a strong foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you start adding floors.
So let's talk about their different business segments.
Okay.
So they're the biggest platform in India.
Yeah.
For used car classifieds. And they explicitly said that OLX is #1 in used car sales.
That's a powerful position to be in.
Yeah, so how does that market dominance help them? I mean, if you're the biggest player, you have a lot of power.
In what sense?
Well, you can kind of set prices.
Okay.
You have all this data on market trends.
Yeah.
And you're in a really good position to negotiate with dealers and stuff.
Okay.
And it also makes you the obvious choice for a lot of people who want to buy or sell cars.
So it's kind of a self-perpetuating cycle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they also have Shriram Automall.
Right, their auction platform.
Which is also the biggest in India. 1.2 million vehicles auctioned.
Impressive.
And it's interesting because the way the transactions work is different.
How so?
So with Shriram Automall, the seller pays the buyer directly.
Okay.
But with some of the OLX auctions, the payment goes through OLX.
So different models.
Yeah, what does that mean? I think it just shows they're catering to different needs.
Okay.
Right? So maybe some people prefer that direct payment, SRAM Automall. And maybe other people like the security of having OLX handle the payment.
So having both options gives them flexibility?
Exactly. They can serve more people that way. And then they've got their new car platform.
Okay.
Carwow and Cartrade.
Yeah.
Which is more about research.
Okay.
And connecting customers with dealers and OEMs. And Carwow seems to be focused on used cars above 8 lakhs.
Right.
How does that fit into everything else? Well, it means they're involved in the whole car buying journey.
Okay.
From when you're first thinking about a new car to when you're looking at used cars at different price points.
Yeah.
And by focusing Carwow on those higher value used cars, they're going after a more affluent customer.
Yeah.
And they can offer more premium services.
A smart segmentation strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they've got this big goal.
Okay.
They want to create India's #1 digital auto loan marketplace.
Ambitious.
Yeah, they're partnering with all these financial institutions to make financing really easy.
Yeah, seamless.
And they pointed out that auto finance, especially for used cars, is way underpenetrated.
Compared to new cars.
Yeah, and compared to other countries.
Right.
So how important is that financing piece?
I think it's crucial.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can make it easier for people to get loans.
Especially for used cars.
Yeah.
That's going to increase sales.
Absolutely.
They'll get a cut of that financing revenue.
Right. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. And there's a lot of room to grow there.
Yeah, that gap in financing penetration represents a big opportunity.
They also see a lot of potential in value-added services.
Oh, yeah.
So things like accessories, insurance, inspection valuation.
So they're trying to become a one-stop shop for all things automotive.
Basically.
Yeah.
So how do those value-added services help them? Well, first of all, it's more revenue.
Right.
Right. They're making money from more things.
Multiple revenue streams.
Yeah. And then it also makes customers more loyal.
Yeah, because they're getting everything they need from one place.
And it really solidifies them as the go-to for anything car-related.
Makes sense.
So overall, they seem really confident about the future.
Yeah, what's the vibe you're getting?
Yeah, they're talking about expanding their operations, increasing their value proposition.
Okay.
You know, really meeting the needs of everyone involved.
Yeah.
And you can tell they're passionate.
Right. It's not just about the numbers.
Yeah. They really believe in what they're doing.
Yeah, they think they can make a difference.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
And they're also putting a lot of emphasis on technology.
Right.
To improve the user experience.
Which is crucial in today's world.
Yeah. You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely.
They also mentioned that the total addressable market is like $14 billion.
That's huge.
Yeah. So they see a lot of room to grow.
That underscores the potential.
Yeah. And they're expecting OEMs to increase their digital marketing spending.
Which would benefit Cartrade Tech.
Yeah, because those OEMs are going to be advertising on platforms like theirs.
It's a natural synergy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course, there are challenges.
Right. There's always challenges.
Yeah. So they mentioned the repossession thing. That's still an issue, although it's getting better.
Yeah.
They need to improve their margins.
Okay.
And they've actually given their teams internal guidance on that.
So they're actively working on it.
Yeah, they're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And then ESOP costs have been a factor.
Okay.
But they think those will go down over time.
So what do you make of those challenges?
I think they're important to watch.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're manageable.
Okay.
The repossession thing is stabilizing.
Yeah.
They're focused on improving margins. And ESOP costs should decrease.
So it's not all smooth sailing, but they seem to have a plan.
Yeah. And I think the broader market context is important too.
Okay.
You know, the internet penetration in India is going way up.
Right.
Which is good for them.
More potential customer?
Yeah, the auto industry's had some ups and downs, but the long-term outlook is positive.
Yeah. What's driving that optimism?
Well, the economy's growing.
Okay.
Not that many people own cars yet.
Right.
The demographics are favorable, and financing is becoming more accessible.
So a lot of factors working in their favor.
Yeah, and the used car market is expected to grow really fast.
How fast?
Like 11% CAGR.
Wow.
Through FY26.
That's significant.
Yeah. So how does all that impact Cartrade Tech? I mean, it seems like they're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
Right? The market's growing. Their core business is used cars.
Yeah.
More people are coming online.
Right.
It's all pointing in the right direction.
It does paint a very positive picture.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say that Cartrade Tech, especially with OLX now, is a major player in India's online auto space.
A dominant force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should have a good understanding now of their financials, their growth strategy,
their vision,
and how the market's playing out.
Yeah, you've laid it all out really well.
But here's something to think about.
Okay.
So they're really strong online.
Yeah.
But they're also investing a lot in those physical stores.
Right.
Which I think shows that they recognize that the Indian auto market is still kind of a mix.
Yeah, online and offline?
Yeah, of online and offline.
Yeah.
So the question is, in this digital age, how important are those stores really going to be?
For their growth.
Yeah. Will they help them grow?
Yeah.
Will they help them build trust with customers?
Especially in the used car market.
Yeah, because that's where trust is really important.
Right. People want to know what they're getting.
Yeah. So it's something to consider.
It's a good question.
As the market keeps changing.
Absolutely. Things are evolving rapidly.
Yeah. So that's something for you to ponder.
Yeah. Lots to think about.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
For this deep dive into Cartrade Tech.
Yeah. It was a great discussion.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.